Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Transfer Talk on Football Talk Podcast. My name's Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. It's been a bit quieter than it has been the last few days in regards to any transfer developments, but nonetheless, we will speak about all the rumours that have been circulating the last few days, and we'll give our views and opinions in terms of what we see the outcome being with certain players or potential targets, and we'll also weigh the reliability of some of the rumors that have been presented to us online. So we'll start with the first one, and that is Luis Diaz. So we'll speak about Isak at some point, but let's speak about Luis Diaz because the development today was that Bayern Munich have placed a bid of 67.5 million euros, which equals to 59 million pounds for Lucho. My thoughts on this, I'm a little bit confused in regards to the amount that's been bidded because I'm so sure that last week they placed an offer and it was around 58 million pounds. So what's changed in the week where they've only just offered us an extra million? For me, 59 million is not anywhere close to our valuation. Liverpool value Luis Diaz at around 70 million pounds, not even in euros. So Bayern Munich need to get their act together. If they really want to sign Luis Diaz, they need to stop playing these games and give us the money that we want for the player because there are interest from other clubs. There's interest from Saudi Arabia. If Luis Diaz wanted to move over there, but of course his angle would probably be to remain in Europe and continue to play at the highest level. That might not happen for him. He needs to make a big decision now because his frustration at Liverpool is not so much the club or the football or anything to that nature. It's more so that he hasn't been rewarded with a new contract since he joined Liverpool all those years ago. So he's got a big decision. Does he, want to stay at Liverpool and, play under his current terms? Or does he have to consider a move to a destination that might not be high priority in Saudi Arabia? Because Bayern Munich are just playing games right now. They're not placing the offer that we want. We've clearly told them, this is our valuation of the player. So even if it was, 65 plus add-ons that equals to 70, 75 million, that's good enough for us. But at the minute, it just looks like they're just, I don't know, being very slow and sluggish in terms of the negotiations. Now, they feel like maybe because the player has not quite forced, Liverpool's hand, but he has expressed his frustration that he wants to leave the club. So in that scenario, Diaz thinks, he might get his way, but it's been quite evident this summer that Liverpool don't mess around, whether it's being aggressive in the market to sign players or to hold their stance and make sure that we get the money that we want for our player. So let's see how this rumor develops. At the minute, if this is Bayern Munich's final offer for Luis Diaz, I think it will be rejected because it's nowhere near what Liverpool want. They have to increase it by at least 10 more million or 11 million precisely. And I think then we can talk business. But right now, I'm not sort of liking the way they're doing business or negotiating at this stage. Very slow, very sluggish, and they're not really getting nothing out of us. So let's see. Worst case scenario isn't really the worst case scenario for us fans, but for Diaz, he might just have to stay for another season. If he doesn't want to move to Saudi, then he might as well remain at Liverpool because other clubs I don't think will be in the market for him. So if you look at Barcelona, they've just signed Marcus Rashford on loan for the season. Who else you have? You have PSG, but they're quite, stacked when it comes to attackers, and even they've been linked to Rodrygo. So if they really wanted to sign an attacker, I think it'll be Rodrygo ahead of Luis Diaz. So Luis Diaz's options might be quite, minimal right now. Probably the same scenario with Darwin Nunez, where he had a few suitors, and in the end, it didn't really work out for him. So for me, I'd love to keep Diaz for another season. I don't think he'll be too pleased, even based on, his interviews and comments he's made online. He's clearly frustrated. He is open to a move. So that's why he's having discussions with other clubs. So for me, he needs to make a decision very, very soon. I would say in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the season begins, I hope to get some clarification in regards to Diaz. Because if he doesn't want to move on, his head needs to be focused on Liverpool, and we can take it from there. So let's see what happens with Lucho. At the minute, it's still up in the air, in my opinion. I don't think it's a shoo that he goes to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are being very cautious or trying to be very cheeky in their negotiations and not really um, help in regards to meeting our requirements and helping speed up the process in order to conclude a deal. But we'll find out, what happens in the coming weeks. Next rumor, Alexander Isak, now, of course, very, very strongly linked with a move to Liverpool. And in the last couple of days, it's been made clear that he wants to leave Newcastle. He's rejected a contract offer from the Toonami and has expressed his desire to leave the club. And he's pretty much earmarked Liverpool as his next destination. And Liverpool are very much interested in signing the striker. Liverpool, according to rumours, are ready to place a British record bid. So it will be a minimum of £120 million. But there's also been interest from another party all the way in Saudi Arabia, where Al Hilal have told Isak that they are willing to offer him 600k per week if he accepts Al Hilal's offer, which is absolute ludicrous money. One thing as well, Newcastle are quite sort of strong in their stance with regards to the transfer fee. They want £150 million for Isak. Al Hilal will probably match that because they have unlimited funds, to say the least. But is that a realistic valuation for Liverpool? And do you think Liverpool will place an offer for Isak? It's a tricky one. Because I think the club are willing to break the British record, so that would be 115 million. So we're willing to spend at least 120 million to secure the services of Alexander Isak. I think the club would be ready to spend 130, 140, 150 might be a bit of a stretch, but it could simply be a deal where we agree 130 million plus add-ons that accumulate to it being a grand total of 150 million pounds. I don't think they will receive a flat base transfer fee of 150. I think that would be quite a huge amount. But for me, we've clearly shown our card. We've shown that we're interested in signing Isak and we're willing to break a transfer record to sign him. So we've got to be strong in our stance as well. We've got to make sure that we are willing to offer the amount of money that is needed to sign Isak. Now, whether we do that or not remains to be seen. But you know, fans will say, "Oh, 150 is too much money. Why on earth would we place that kind of offer?" Well, we're willing to spend and get the dream signing because let's be honest, he is our dream signing. So let's see what happens. I feel like we will place a bid very, very soon. It's just a matter of time in terms of when we make that bid. I think we need to be given that sort of clarity from Newcastle that they're open for business and they're still being a bit coy or not as open as they should be because it's quite obvious that they have a player that's frustrated and very much unsettled, within their ranks. He hasn't travelled with the squad to Singapore in terms of their pre-season preparations. They'll cover up the story and say, "Oh, he's picked up a thigh injury, and that's why we've told him to stay and focus on doing some training." You've got the likes of Alan Shearer making pleas for him to stay and all that sort of stuff. So they're doing their utmost to make sure that he remains at the club. But Eddie Howe's comments last week to say that he's unsettled based on the speculation, for me, he just revealed the card that Isak is unhappy and he wants to leave Newcastle. So if those details weren't revealed, then I feel like we'll still be, unsure about the situation. But for me, it's clear as day. He wants to leave Newcastle and he wants to join Liverpool. The Al Hilal deal, don't get me wrong, 600K a week is absolutely insane amount of money. It's life changing for any individual in the world. But I think he'll probably look at him from a more footballing point of view. Is it going to help with his legacy right now? I don't think it will because he's 26. He's literally just about to enter his prime years as a footballer. So for me, it would make more sense for him to stay in the Premier League rather than move over to Saudi and you know get that big paycheck. But unfortunately, could be forgotten about in years to come if he ends up settling there for a few years. So let's see what happens. I'm quite confident that we will place a bid at some point. Whether it will get accepted straight away, I don't think it will take a few efforts for us to secure that deal, unless we've already had a lot of discussions behind the scene and we're just trying to muster up the right offer, the right payment structure, and we could be pleasantly surprised in regards to a deal being agreed. But at the minute, it's probably more wishful thinking than anything else. So we'll have to just wait and see, and you know, see how this rumor or this deal develops in the coming days. Now, before I move on to the next one, I'm just going to go through some of the comments. First comment from Hamza. Big up Hamza. He says, "When do you think we get Alexander Isak?" And his second question is, "And are you 100% sure we get him this summer?" I can't say 100% sure because a few days ago I had a slightly different opinion where it's quite obvious that he is my dream signing for Liverpool. But I thought because we had just spent so much money on Ekitike that it might not be a realistic option because of the amount of money involved and stylistically, I don't see us playing with two strikers that are quite similar. But because of the new developments with Isak wanting to leave now, and after doing research, I feel like Isak and Ekitike could be able to play together in the lineup, but it will have to be done very strategically. It can't just be where you play one player on the left wing and he's going to be the left winger. He's going to have to play a hybrid role where he's more of an inside forward, and then Isak ends up being the focal point, playing on the shoulder. So it's going to be interesting. I feel like we're going to try our utmost to get the deal done, but I think Newcastle, for the sake of their fans, are going to try and play hardball and not, accept the first offer that comes in. They're going to try and milk it as much as possible. So, in terms of, do I think we'll get him? I think we will. When? I'm not entirely sure. But hopefully, we'll get some sort of development where an official approach has been made or a bid has been placed. And I think we can take it from there onwards. So, yeah, I'm confident, but I'm not overconfident at this stage because it's just a waiting game for us. And once we get further news or further developments, then we can, discuss it in more detail. Uh, Bo says, "My man, big on yourself, Bo. Hope you're well." He says, "How many Prem's will Arne get?" How many will Arne get? If we get Isak, be back to back for years to come. I'm only joking, but I'm joking. But you never know. I feel like we're here to dominate. And the way we've been so aggressive in this transfer window, that's a sign there that we're not messing around. We're trying to be here for a long time. We've seen the likes of Man City decline. I know they lost one player and, it pretty much catapulted their whole season last season. But I mean, he was the one that pretty much held them together. And now you've seen the sort of the frailty within the team where the players that are in the squad, they're not to the highest level, and a lot of them are towards the latter stages of their career, so they need to try and add some young blood, I guess, into that team and go again. They have to do a Pep 2.0 team for Man City. But in regards to Liverpool, this is just the beginning, and I don't feel like we played to our maximum last year. Last season, literally, Arne Slot took over Jurgen Klopp's team. Didn't really add anyone, of course, apart from Chiesa, but he ended up being more of a bit part player than anything else. So now he's, getting signings through the door. He's got the players that he wants, and I feel like he's trying to have the strongest squad available. Where if he needs to rotate, he doesn't have any sort of reservations with that squad player coming into the lineup because it should be exactly the type of player that he has belief in. And for me, that's a exciting prospect next season because we've seen it over the years when you've got squad players, it tends to be quite a big drop. But I feel like the team that we're developing right now, it's not a massive drop. They're very like for like, and that's a scary thought for rival fans. Where if Florian Wirtz is not available, or we've got Szoboszlai, he can do a shift as well. At the minute Diaz is there, but if he's not available, then Gakpo's there. Isak's here, and if he's not available, hopefully, Ekitike is the one that comes into his place as well. So, we've got a lot of quality in our squad. Of course, there's a couple positions that I still feel like we need to address, especially if certain players depart this summer. But we're cooking right now. I think we're definite favourites for next season, and I would love to say we would go back to back for 2, 3, 4 years straight. But we'll take it one season at a time. But in terms of the nearest season coming, I think we'll definitely win the league. And that's my energy in regards to next season. Ozan Kamak says, big up the man, Ozzy. Big up yourself, Ozan Kamak. Thank you for your comment and thank you for tuning in as always. Now, on to the next rumour. And that is regarding Darwin Nunez. Now, unfortunately for him, his sort of links to predominant clubs has faded away. He was strongly linked to a move to Napoli. That has, of course, been scrapped up because they've already found a striker in their squad. So Liverpool need to find a solution for Darwin Nunez because I don't think he has a future at the club, and I expect him to depart at some point of this window. So there's a couple options where Liverpool could use Darwin Nunez as part of the Isak deal because let's be honest, Newcastle need a striker in their squad, not just one striker to replace Isak. They need about one or probably about two or three attackers, because they don't have the strength and depth in that role. So that's someone could be Darwin Nunez that comes in, but apparently it looks like Newcastle have earmarked Benjamin Sesko as their main target to replace Isak. But I think Sesko is not just the answer. They'll need to add another player on top. Wissa is also another player. So, that could be the two strikers that they have. But I feel like, with a team like Newcastle, you need about two, three strikers because all your other players in your team, especially your wingers, they can't really, come in and play up top. They are mainly wingers at trade. So, therefore, you have to probably have two or three attackers on the bench or within the squad. So, let's see what Newcastle do. I'm sure a player like Darwin Nunez would, do well for them. I don't think we'd miss him because we've pretty much hit the ceiling with Darwin Nunez, where I don't feel like he's got any more room to grow. The other option would be to go over to Saudi, where Al Hilal remains an option for Darwin Nunez. They're in the market for a striker. They're trying to actually get Isak through the door, but it looks like he's got his eyes set on a move to Liverpool. Simone Inzaghi seems to be a fan, from what I've heard, and wants the club to pursue the Uruguayan striker. So that I think is a realistic option. If Liverpool are the team that signs Isak, but also Al Nassr. Their coach is Jorge Jesus, who is Darwin as his former coach at Benfica. So those two individuals could be reunited at Saudi. I feel like Saudi is his most likely destination. I haven't heard any other rumor in regards to another European team, wanting his signature. Before you'd hear clubs in Italy. So Napoli was the strongest club. You've heard Juventus recently as well, but they won't be willing to spend that much on Darwin Nunez. Atletico, I think they thought they would have had a vacant space for a striker in Griezmann, but he's ended up staying at the club. So there aren't really any other teams that would be interested in signing Nunez. Newcastle, from a Premier League point of view, I don't think there's any interest in France. Not heard anything from the Bundesliga. So looks like Saudi could be the destination, and I don't think it's a crazy one for him. He's 25 years of age, so of course he's still got his prime years to achieve as well. But he could easily go to Saudi, play there for a couple of years, and still be old enough to return to Europe and eventually make that move to a Serie A team or a La Liga team and continue his European journey once again. So he needs to think for the short term rather than long term, in my opinion, because he's not going to get much game time at Liverpool. We've pretty much voiced or we've explained it to him that you're no longer a player that we have a vision for in the squad, so therefore you're surplus to requirements. So I think it would be the best for Darwin Nunez and for Liverpool to part ways, and I think it will benefit him to join another club where he's given the freedom to play up top on his own and showcase his ability going forward. And playing the Saudi league, I'm sure he'll bang in the goals left, right, and centre. So um, I expect Darwin Nunez to leave, but some fans are still holding into a little bit of hope that he could stay because there hasn't been any other noise from other clubs or because we don't have a lot of strikers in the squad. Like, let's say we can't get an Isak deal done, would it not make sense to keep him for another season? For me, no. I think the time is for Darwin Nunez to move on away from Liverpool. Um, Worst case scenario, we might even have to accept a loan deal from somewhere, but present a obligation to buy at the end of that deal. So, it sounds a bit harsh. It sounds like I want to get rid of Darwin Nunez. It's not quite that. I feel like he's a talented player, but he's not suited for Liverpool. He's not suited for the Premier League. And I feel like he would do really well elsewhere because he does have certain qualities that would be very hard to defend against in other leagues. If he goes to Serie A, it's very slow build up played there. Um, he would be chaotic in that league, but also have the space to take his time to shoot and score. Whereas in the Premier League, it's chaotic 24/7. It's non-stop. And for him, he's not able to function in that kind of environment or that atmosphere within the pitch. So it makes sense for him to play in a league that's a bit slower or less, you know, physical or aggressive in the style of play. And I feel like that's when you get to see the best of Darwin Nunez. So yeah, let's see what happens with Darwin. I expect him to leave at some point in this window. Just got a comment here from Hamza. He says, "Which centre back do you think we sign?" I think we'll sign Mark Gay. I think he's the one that is strongly linked with the club, and I think we've already had private discussions with him in regards to a move to Liverpool. And I feel like behind the scenes we probably, come to some sort of verbal agreement with him. So it's only a matter of time that Liverpool plays an official bid with Crystal Palace. I think the valuation is a little bit off between the two clubs. So once they can meet the middle ground, that's when a deal should be concluded. So I'm expecting it to be Mark Gahey as our new centre back this summer. Ozan Kabak says, I want to win a treble 100%. I'll go even a step further. I want the quad, something that no one's done before. And if Liverpool can do it, we've pretty much completed football. So that would be my dream. Treble, of course, I'm not going to say no to a treble. Um, I feel like we can really challenge for all the titles next season. Our sort of second 11 is as strong as any other team in the league. So that's what really excites me going forward. And yeah, let's hope we can, achieve multiple titles next season because I feel like we have the squad to help us achieve that. On to the next player, and it's Hugo Ekitike, officially wearing a Liverpool shirt. No AI involved in regards to producing an image of him wearing a Liverpool shirt. And it's a beautiful sight. He's trained today with the first team for the first time, um, and could be in contention to play against AC Milan tomorrow in our preseason fixture. The big question is, what position could we see Ekitike play next season for Liverpool? He had an interview earlier on today with the Liverpool social media team, and pretty much said that he can play on his own, but he also likes to play alongside a striker. So that lit up a lot of eyes of Liverpool fans and people started dreaming of Isak and Ekitike together as a strike duo. You never know. It could be a strong possibility. Um, what I like about Ekitike, I feel like he can play in different roles where, depending on the formation, I think he can play as a number nine if we need him to. He can play as an inside forward alongside another number nine in Isak because that's the one that we're going for. Or he can play as a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1 formation. And then you have someone like Verts, shifting over to the left, but also both of the players, interchanging during the game. So I feel like he's going to give us a lot of options in our attack. He's not just a traditional number nine, he's far from it. He's a very unique profile where even when he plays as a number nine, he's able to present different skill sets than your normal number nine. So, for example, he's very, very good at dropping deep and linking up the midfield to attack. That's one of his very, very strong areas of his game. He's a fantastic dribbler, really quick feet, loves to attack the channel, beats a man when he has to, especially if he's on the wide areas. Uh, Shooting is a lot more measured than a Darwin Nunez, for example, where when he gets the ball he's pretty much placing it into the corners rather than just lashing at it. So for me, he's going to bring calmness in front of goal. I feel like playing in a better team, respectively to Frankfurt, he will be getting a lot of chances, and I feel like he'll be scoring a lot of goals for us next season as well. So whether he's playing as a 10, as a number 9, or as an inside forward, I think Ekitike is going to be very impactful for Liverpool next season, and I'm very excited to see him in action. And hopefully, we can see him playing tomorrow afternoon against AC Milan. Whether it's a starting role or off the bench, it'll be good to see him making a cameo. So yeah, exciting times for us Liverpool fans going ahead. On to next rumor, it's Rodrygo. Now, the rumor regarding Rodrygo was quite constant last week. We were strongly linked with the Real Madrid attacker, but now it's gone very quiet all of a sudden. PSG seem to be the latest team showing interest in the attacker, where rumors are suggesting that they are willing to place a 100 million euro bid for the Real Madrid attacker. Now, the question is, do we think there is genuine interest in signing Rodrygo from a Liverpool point of view, or have we switched our focus completely on signing Isak? I think it's the latter. I think we're going all guns blazing and we put all our eggs in one basket for Isak. And I feel like because of that, we probably put the Rodrygo interest on the back burner and maybe it's, resurfaced or reignited at some point in the future. Now, could you imagine where we get Isak and Rodrygo? I feel like that's very far fetched, but a lot of our transfer dealings seems far fetched at first, and we seem to be gaining momentum, and we're doing a lot of things to get new players through the door. So you can't rule it out completely, but I don't feel like we would. I think that would require a big transfer fee plus another huge salary within our current structure. So I don't think there's any interest in Rodrygo right now, but you never know. Once we get some clarity in terms of Diaz and Darwin Nunez, if both players leave, then it's a possibility that we could get two attackers coming through. So, and Isak and Rodrygo wouldn't be a crazy shout. But I think the Rodrygo deal will probably happen, or strong approaches will be made once players depart from the club, i.e., Luis Diaz, Darwin Nunez, Federico Chiesa, and possibly Harvey Elliott. But in terms of the latter, he could remain at the club. So only time will tell. And speaking of Harvey Elliott, um, he was strongly linked with a move to West Ham last week, but that seemed to have quieted down a little bit. The club value him at 50 million. A few months ago it was 40 million. That was what was earmarked as his transfer valuation. But due to having such a great Euro for the under 21s in the summer, uh, his stock has gone high, let's be honest. So 50 million, I don't think it's a crazy amount, but it could price him out of a move to another club. Now, the question is that a tactic from Liverpool to put a big price tag on him and, see if anyone wants to negotiate? Or, you know, is this just a way for us to fend off any interest in order to keep him on board for another season? I think the price tag is there because we know it'll be very unlikely that someone would offer 50 million. If they did, I think we'd accept it. And of course, that proposal will be presented to Elliot. And if he's on board and he wants to leave the club, then, I think we would get the money that we probably didn't expect. We got 10 million probably on top of what we had imagined in our heads. So, that would end up being a positive for Liverpool where we've gained from a financial point of view. But I feel like with Elliot, he could stay for another season. I know in his sort of after the season concluded, he presented the Instagram post and seemed very emotional. And he did a recent interview a couple of days ago, and it was quite clear that he's got one eye on the future where if he doesn't get enough game time, then he will have to be selfish and greedy, as an individual and try and think what's best for him with his career, and he'll have to move on from Liverpool. So that could definitely be on the cards, but it could be where that happens next summer rather than right now. So let's see what happens with Harvey. I, for one, would like him to stay for one more season. I feel like he would provide fantastic cover for Mohamed Salah on that right hand side, and if needed, he can also play that number 10 role. Um, his game time, I feel like could be limited, but it comes down to him as well. And I feel like Arne Slot will be rotating a lot more. I feel like he'll have enough faith in the squad to rotate players in sort of a more calculated way, but do it in more higher volume in comparison to what happened last season. So Elliot, for me, I would like to keep him for another season, um, but a move away from the club can't be ruled out. So one to watch, but at the minute it looks like he pretty much will be a Liverpool player next season. Now on to the next rumor. A bit of a confusing situation in regards to Ibou Konate. Now, a few days ago, it was reported that Liverpool have offered him a new contract, and the details haven't been revealed to be fair, but there's been some sort of rumor, some sort of inkling, or some sort of suggestions that Liverpool have offered 180k per week plus bonuses in a 5-year deal for Ibou Konate. But on the flip side, apparently Real Madrid are considering placing an offer for Konate in this window. Liverpool apparently value him at 50 million euros, which is 44 million pounds. But Real Madrid are only willing to offer 25 million euros, typical Real Madrid. And that ends up being 22 million pounds for us. So, question is, what should Liverpool do if we end up receiving a bid from Real Madrid? Now, if it's 22 million, that's getting rejected straight away. That's not even good enough for us to consider. For me, the minimum I would accept is actually our valuation, which is 50 million euros. I wouldn't accept more than anything less than 44. We need to get at least 44 million pounds. I would say 45, but in euros it ends up being 44 when someone places a 50 million euros bid. Um, So yeah, that is the fee, and I don't think that's a crazy fee because we're trying to sign a defender in Mark Gahey, and they value them at 45 million. But of course, I don't think these two players are in the same league. Kanate is, for me, head and shoulders above Gahey, so his valuation on paper should be higher than 45 million, right? But I think considering he's got 1 year left, and I feel like a reasonable, uh, price tag of 50 million euros, which is 45 million pounds roughly, is realistic. And I feel like it's enough for us to sign a Gay plus probably another defender on top as well. We're not going to find a like for like player like Konate, unfortunately, because there aren't many players out there. One player that I feel like had similar qualities is actually Osman Diomande, but it looks like he's moving over to Crystal Palace to replace Gay. So it's a bit of a merry-go-round in terms of these three players. in terms of what I see happening for Konate, if I was to make a prediction, I don't think we'll get an answer in this window. We'll get some clarification as the season goes on, which is not what I want because I would like this to be all sealed and dealed before the season begins. But right now, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. A few days ago, I felt a bit positive, thinking, if we've offered him a contract and it's closer to, his expectations, then we should get a deal uh, very much done in the short term. But we don't know because Real Madrid, they're lingering right now. They're suggesting that they might wait 1 year and want the player to, play out his contract and then they get him on a free transfer, but also offer him bonuses and sign-on fees in order to, vouch that promise. But at the same time, they probably looked at their current defensive situation and thought we're not defensively sound right now. Maybe we've got to fast track this deal 1 year early and get him for sort of slightly lesser fee than in comparison to if Konate had a big contract. We'd probably want at least double that amount. So um, let's see what happens with Konate. I'm still 50-50. I want him to stay, but I'm just not so sure in terms of what is happening right now. Um, and next rumor is Juro Hato. Now, pretty much been a long target for Liverpool, but right now it looks like he could be moving over to Chelsea as they are currently in negotiations to sign the Dutchman. Now, what's my thoughts on this rumor? Because I've been a big fan of Hato for at least a couple of years now. Is this a missed opportunity? I feel like it is to an extent, but maybe Liverpool didn't have him as a top priority in this window, and if he goes, it probably is what it is in that scenario. I feel like our focus is to try and get Isak through the door because that's the deal that appeared impossible at one point, but now it could become a reality. So we're focusing on that, and that's probably why we're not hearing much regarding an approach for Mark Gahey. If Konate was to leave, then you'd probably look to sign Gahey and Hato in that scenario. But looks like Hato could be set to move to Chelsea. But if I'm being honest, I feel like Hato should stay at Eredivisie for 1 more year. And I'm not saying it because Liverpool aren't linked to him anymore. I feel like for his development, it makes the most sense because they've got John Heitinga, our former assistant manager there. So maybe playing under his sort of stewardship would have made him a bit more adapt and ready for the Premier League next season. He's only 18, 19 years of age. There's no urgency for him to leave so soon. So I feel like maybe one more season where he can learn his trade under a new coach and really, progress going forward. But Chelsea, they like to buy players without having a real strategy. The Hatter signing for me doesn't even make sense because he's a left-sided centre back slash left back as well. But even in those two positions, they've got Cucurella at left back. He's not going to displace him, and they've also got Colwell, they've got Balashile, and I'm sure they've got another player in that defense. So he wouldn't surpass Colwell in the lineup because he's pretty much one of the main names in that defense. So let's see what happens for Hato. I would be disappointed if he goes Chelsea, but I wouldn't lose too sleep because I feel like Liverpool have a plan and they will make sure they sign the right quality whenever it's needed. So yeah, I'll be disappointed, but I have faith in my club in terms of how they move in the transfer window. Now, in terms of the final rumor, and that is regarding Owen Beck. Now, the current story is that he is set to sign a new contract with Liverpool, and the the next move is that he'll be loaned out for this coming season, and Derby County seems to be his most likely destination. So my thoughts on this, it makes perfect sense to offer him a new contract. And I think a loan move to a championship side is the perfect scenario as well, because he gets to showcase his talent there, he gets to play in a competitive league. And I feel like if he has an amazing or a standout season for Derby County, then I feel like he could have a strong chance of being part of the first team squad next year because Robertson is on the last year of his contract, and I don't think we'll offer him a new one. So that will present a vacant space at left back, unless Simicast stays this season and he gets he's more involved in the first team. But I don't think he'd be willing to be third choice in this current squad. So that could mean that Owen Beck has a chance next season to challenge for a left back role in the first team. So I think it's a good move. And also, if we don't have a space for him. Maybe we've identified another target, or Robertson actually gets a new contract, or Simicast stays and he ends up being the backup. Then, even with him having a good season for Derby County, for example, uh, his stock will of course improve, and then therefore we can offer or we can value him at a higher fee, and then hopefully a club will match that transfer valuation. So for me, it's a win-win situation. So hopefully, Owen Beck does well next season. And yeah, let's see if he has a future at the club. That is the final rumor. But I've just got a comment here from Ozan Kamat uh, in the highlight is moving mad this summer. I feel like there was a bumble. I heard he was doing an 11 p.m. bumble. So let's quickly present the tweet and see what he's revealed. Let's go over to Twitter and I'll showcase. So here we go. So it was tweeted 52. So this is his latest tweet. Um, so hopefully you guys can see on the screen. Um, Alexander Isak has formally informed Newcastle United his wishes to leave the club. Isak's lawyers could submit official written transfer requests to force this dream move to Liverpool. The player is aware that Newcastle are trying to close deals for Benjamin Sesko and Johan Wissa. That's a very interesting tweet. And yeah, Indy's definitely moving mad this summer because with his sort of tweets over the years, you always have to take it with a pinch of salt. We just don't know how credible they are. But this summer, he seems to be getting a lot right. So I don't know if it's a new connect, within the club, or he knows someone behind the scenes, but he's making the right noises right now. Um, and the tweet makes sense as well because he's definitely voiced his frustration about not with the club not accepting any offers or anything to that nature. So when that normally happens at a club, the player has to be firm in their stance, and the next step ends up being where they present a official written transfer request. Now, in terms of our day and age, in terms of the regular person, that's basically you handing in your resignation to force a departure there. So if that happens, it puts us in the driving seat even further. It's an advantage Liverpool because now the ball's in our court. The player has submitted a transfer request. He wants to leave. And as it stands, he wants to join Liverpool, and that's the only club that he wants to join. So for me, it's very, very positive. The way things are aligning together, and hopefully, we can get Isak through the door. I saw something earlier today online where a certain content creator was suggesting that Manchester United should pursue the signature of Alexander Isak now. I find it quite laughable because his angle was a lot of clubs have signed their strikers. Liverpool have to sell in order to buy. Has he not been following the transfer window? We don't have to sell to buy anymore. We're moving like a big club. We're buying players and then we'll sort that that part of the game at a later time. And then he started listing players in the squad that were black, and he was like, his angle was like, well, why wouldn't Alexander Isak want to join Manchester United? There's so many black players there. That's got nothing to do with him wanting to move a club. Uh, he wants to move to club to win titles and win honors. You're not going to win honors at Manchester United. Bottled the Europa League final last season. They haven't really challenged for the title for a long, long time. So why would he want to join Manchester United? He's better off staying at Newcastle, where he has a stronger chance of winning silverware. He won silverware last year, beating us in the Carabao Cup final. So yeah, some fans can be very shameless in terms of their take, but of course it can also be done for clickbait material as well. But back to Isak, I feel like something's happening, something's brewing in the background. And I feel like if I was to make a prediction, I think we'll place a bid next week. That's my prediction. Whether it happens or not, remains to be seen. But I just have an inkling that we've got enough ammunition to just go there and say, look, the player's not happy. The whole world knows. Here's 120 million. Talk to us. Like, are you going to accept it or not? And then that's when the negotiation starts from there onwards. So I'm hoping that is the case, and I'm hoping that is how things begin next week. But only time will tell. Ozan come back with the comment. He says, "I never took him seriously until he called Bert Kirk's pinpoint Ekitike." That's what I'm saying. He's been on a roll this season, so you can't discourage his credibility as an anti-K this season. He's been one of the best, let's be honest. So credit where credit's due. Indy's been the man this summer. So let's hope he gives us more bombers, in the coming days and weeks. And hopefully, it's positive news that Liverpool can sign Isak. But of course, this Isak can be one of many. I'm hoping Liverpool can get a centre back, maybe even an attacker if we end up selling, multiple players in this window. So yeah, I would say buckle up and just enjoy the ride because Liverpool are doing some serious business this summer. And that is the last comment, and that is the end of the show. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Hamza, to Bo, to Oz and Kabak. Appreciate your engagement. As always, guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming content, it slipped my mind that we had a friendly. So tomorrow I'll be doing a watch along of Liverpool versus AC Milan. The match starts at 12:30 p.m. UK time. So I'll try my best to be logged on just before kickoff so we can go through the lineups together and then we can watch the game as well. And then if there's any breaking news during the weekend, I'll probably end up doing more of an impromptu show. And yeah, so best thing to do is hit that notification bell so if I'm doing a stream that night or that evening, then you know what time I'll be going live. And you can also follow me on social media for all the latest updates. You can follow me at Aussie.ftp on Instagram. Plus, you can also follow me at Aussie_FTP on X/Twitter. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.